I'm very privileged to be able to work and visit with an amazingly wide variety of brokers and funding sources as I travel around the country. I learned so much from doing that, and one of the interesting things I've learned is that both the underwriting side of our business and the brokering side each express great frustration over the need for the broker to go back to prospective customers over and over and over again to get sufficient credit or financial information. What I find particularly interesting about that is that it's almost universally seen as a burden put on the broker by the underwriter, something the broker has to do to satisfy the underwriter, to help them, to improve the underwriter's operation. In fact, though, while it does help the underwriter to have all the information they need right from the start, getting the right information the first time is most beneficial to the broker. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this NAELB Distance Learning program. I'm going to share with you 3 incredibly powerful but incredibly simple selling tools for helping to get good, complete credit information efficiently the first time and every time. My great fear is that the brokers who need this the most will think this is something to help their underwriters more than themselves. So first, I'm going to take a look at why being able to get the right information right away is so critically important in building a successful brokering business. How much was that? Not how much time, but how much money was it? I ask that because in a very real way, for us as independent brokers, time is money. More accurately, I guess we could say, time is our inventory. It's what we sell. As equipment leasing brokers, we don't stock the equipment our customers lease, and we don't provide the money to fund those leases. What we do provide is our services in bringing that equipment, that funding, and those customers all together for their mutual benefit, and hopefully for ours too. To look in our stock rooms, then, is to look in our daytimers. And that's a challenge we face. It's a challenge common to all professional people who sell their personal services. We can't just order up more inventory. We're each allocated a fixed amount. In fact, we're each allocated the exact same amount, the same 24 hours per day. Some of that inventory has to be used up just for the maintenance of living, eating and sleeping, for example. Some of it has to be used meeting our obligations to other people, our spouses, our children, our parents, or our friends. And most of us want to do way more for them than just minimally meet those obligations. Some of us also have other personal interests we may find either relaxing or rewarding or renewing. And health experts say most of us should spend some of our time inventory on those kinds of things. What's left over then is what we have that we can sell. Now, it's a natural and an admirable trait to want to improve, to want to do better, to do more of whatever we're doing. The fact is, though, that we can't sell more of our limited, finite time inventory without taking it away from one of the other areas we want to spend it on. If we can't or don't want to do that, it becomes critical that we find ways to improve by using our business time inventory more effectively, by selling it better, selling it smarter, and selling it more efficiently. The last thing we should be using up our valuable selling time inventory on is going back, getting any bit of information from a customer that we already had an opportunity to get previously, but didn't. Sometimes, of course, it's unavoidable. But if we want to maximize our return on our selling time inventory, we have to make sure we keep those instances to an absolute minimum. Anytime you're going back to a prospect, getting information that you could have gotten earlier, that's a dead, unrecoverable loss of selling time. And it is inevitably showing up on the bottom line of your business, whether you show it as a line item there or not. So you see, getting good credit and financial information the first time isn't really about the credit process at all. It's about you getting the most from your own business. All right, now we know why it's important. Let's talk about how to get good at it. And that's a 2-step process, and we're already covering the first step. That's simply becoming and then staying aware of its importance and making getting better at it a conscious and an ongoing part of your sales training and personal development efforts. The second step is understanding why we don't do it and or what makes it difficult to do, and then developing specific tools and practices that we can use to overcome those things. Some brokers aren't good at it because they just don't care. Some of them just see this business as easy to get into and they're just too lazy to make any effort to understand it. They make no effort at all to get a complete application. I call them flip and fax brokers. Their whole business model seems to be to take any application that comes in off the fax machine, just flip it over and fax it back out. Most brokers, though, do try to do a good job for their customers, for their vendors, and for their underwriters. Most want to build long-term professional businesses. They struggle to get all the information they need on each transaction. They struggle with unclear requirements and with customers who want to give as little information as possible. And they're doing it all under great time pressure from their vendors, many times doing so without having any specific training on or a good strategy or set of tools for properly setting up situations where prospective customers want to give good, ample credit information. Now, before I share with you the sales tools that I use, let me say this about using sales tools in general. Any salesperson of any experience level who is not using sales tools is not selling as well or as easily as they can. They may be selling a lot, and it may be more than enough to satisfy themselves, but it's not as much as they could be selling or as easy as it could be for them. Well thought out sales tools, whether they're charts, diagrams, questionnaires, brochures, estimators, or simply good sales scripts, all help keep the salesperson and the prospect focused on the same things and at the same time. Because they take care of that, they free the salesperson to concentrate on how the information is being received, to concentrate on the prospect instead of on themselves and their own products. Far, far too many salespeople erroneously believe that using sales tools restricts them and won't allow them to be responsive to their prospects. They won't use a script because they want to tailor their presentations to suit the prospect and they don't want it to sound canned. Well, that's just nonsense. A salesperson's job is to convey specific information to help the prospect see how that information can benefit them. Doing so efficiently and effectively takes great planning. No one goes to see a great actor in a great play because he wings it and makes up different dialogue for each audience each night. They go because, as a great actor, he's made the effort to learn the dialogue so well that he's now freed from thinking about what he's trying to convey, and he can now concentrate on how he's conveying it and how the audience is receiving it, adjusting his delivery as necessary for maximum impact. He couldn't do that if he didn't know the words in advance. And if a salesperson doesn't know in advance exactly what he or she wants to say, that salesperson can't say it with maximum impact either. Whether something comes across as canned or as well planned has nothing whatsoever to do with the words being said and everything to do with the amount of effort put into learning and delivering those words by the person saying them. So here are 3 tools I use to help me get good quality credit or financial information from a prospect and to minimize my need to go back to them in order to get it in bits and pieces. It's my hope that you'll take the principles they're built on and develop your own targeted, well thought out tools and practices focused on your own market and your own strengths. Now, what I use are all built on the same 2 sales principles. The first principle is this: the best time to handle any sales problem or objection is before it comes up. You'll see that I try to anticipate common questions or objections we all get. I always want to put those things out first for 2 reasons. If I can overcome them, I want to do so early so they won't be hanging over the rest of the presentation. And if I can't overcome them, I also want to know that early so I don't waste time on the rest of the presentation only to lose the sale over those things later. The second principle is put the pressure where it belongs, on the prospect. I'm all about low pressure selling, and by that I mean low pressure on me. I can't control the credit process or the resulting decision, so I refuse to worry about them, and I refuse to feel pressured to get a prospect and approval. I simply make it clear to the prospect what's required, and then I make it the prospect's responsibility to earn the approval they want. The trick is to do it easily and non-judgmentally. These tools help me do that. Each one of these is geared for slightly different situations, but I know them so well that I can instantly recognize when one or the other or some combination of them is going to be appropriate, and I can quickly and smoothly transition directly to them. It's just a matter of practice, and practice, and practice. This first one I call the 3-question app, and it's the most general and what I use to deal with the most general credit issues. Though there may be lots of detailed questions and supporting information needed for a complete credit application, when you really pare it down to the essentials, there are just 3 fundamental questions that every credit analyst must have answered to judge their interest in a transaction or for you to qualify it for the appropriate pricing. Helping your prospect understand that and asking your prospect those 3 questions in advance will help you be sure the prospect is realistic about his or her credit and that the prospect will provide the necessary information for you to submit the request to the underwriter most likely to approve it. Here are the 3 crucial questions. 1. Financially speaking, what's the strength of this transaction? 2. Where is that strength documented? And 3. How is that strength made available to secure this lease obligation? For the most part, the leases we do can be considered finance leases. For this discussion, I use the term finance lease to mean a lease where the credit decision is based primarily on the general creditworthiness of the intended lessee and the expected return on investment for the lessor. That's as opposed to making the credit decision based on either the market or the utility value of the leased equipment itself. Now that's not always an instinctive thing for a prospective lessee to understand. At the point the prospect is talking to us, that prospect is focused on what the proposed equipment will be doing for his or her business. And so that prospect may very reasonably be expected to assume that that value is just as obvious and just as important to our lease underwriters as it is to him or her. Until we help the prospect see it differently, he or she may consider the new equipment to be the strength of the transaction. Of course, we know, however, that that's not true. So here's how to help the prospect to see that, and then to introduce the 3 crucial credit questions that ultimately you'll need to answer. Mr. or Miss Prospect, this equipment is important to you and to your business because you understand what it will do for you. Obviously, my underwriters can't know your business the way that you do, and they're certainly not experts in this kind of equipment. If they were, they may well want more control over your choices, or add on certain services or maintenance fees, or just generally charge more. Instead, however, my underwriters let you determine what you need, what brand you want, how you'll maintain it, and when you want to get it. They're really business and finance experts, not equipment experts. Now, I'll need to get some details about you and your business for them, but candidly, they're really expecting me to be able to answer 3 key questions for them. I'd like to take a minute now and get your help in how I should answer those on your behalf. First, financially speaking, what's the strength of this transaction? For example, for some of my clients, it's extreme longevity in business, or for some, it's many, many years of profitability, or lots of cash in the bank, or extremely strong owners. Sometimes it's a combination of those things and or other things. They're really looking here to see the ability to meet the lease obligation and a history of meeting other similar obligations. Second, how is that strength documented? Audited financial statements, tax returns, public record filings, bank statements, and credit references are the most common ways of documenting business financial strength. Personal financial statements, personal tax returns, and retail credit reports are typically used when the business owners are a key part of the business's strength. Third, how is that strength made available to secure this lease obligation? Sometimes a long, well-known track record of profitability and meeting obligations can be its own security. If the owners themselves are a key part of the business's strength, then personal guarantees alone may be enough. Pledges of other types of collateral or contracts can also be used occasionally. Mr. or Ms. Prospect, let's take a minute now to review these three questions together so that I'm sure I'm answering them in the best way that you'd want me to, and the way that presents your business in the strongest possible light. The reason this is such an effective way of handling this is that it's simple, direct, and takes all the pressure off the salesperson and puts it where it belongs, on the prospect. Laying out those three questions in that order will also help any salesperson deal very effectively and in advance with some common objections. Have you ever had a prospect say they are a very successful company, but since they're privately owned, their financial statements couldn't be released? Well, if they can't be documented for question number 2, it's not a strength and answer to question number 1. How about the prospect that won't show you a personal financial statement? Same answer. How about the prospect with the impressive personal financial statement, but that won't personally guarantee? If it's not available to secure the obligation and answer to question number 3, then it's not a strength and answer to question number 1. My answer to those prospects is equally simple and straightforward and keeps all of the pressure off of me and on them. Do you remember the old Perry Mason show, I might ask the prospect, when the judge would tell the jury to disregard something they just heard? Well, Mr. Prospect, you've put me in the somewhat of the same position. You've just told me to tell my underwriters to ignore that strength if it can't be documented or made available to secure this obligation. So in its place, Mr. Prospect, what other strength would you like me to list instead? To be effective and productive, you need to eliminate early on any objections which could stall or prevent your sale from closing. To price and apply for the right lease, the approvable lease, you need a prospect that understands the process and is realistic about his credit strength. This tool accomplishes that. Make using this a habit, and you'll get used to getting more approvals and with less effort. This next tool I call approval tiers or levels. It's a little more pointed, and I use it whenever I have any reason to think that I may have difficulty getting detailed credit information or even a personal guarantee. Again, I want to deal with the issue before it comes up, so I get to frame it myself. It's my experience that many customers' sense of pride causes them to resent us needing to ask for detailed information in order to approve their request. Sometimes it's almost a, well, I'm me and that's all you need to know kind of attitude. I'm sure it's just because so much consumer credit is so easy to get today. Therefore, to him, I've singled him out, and it's something more or extra that I appear to be requiring, and in that context, my requiring it is judgmental and maybe even offensive. So how I want to frame the issue is that I don't require much at all, but at the same time open a door for him to volunteer more in return for more favorable terms or treatment. So I do this by introducing approval tiers, and of course tiered pricing is implied in it automatically. Now I have these prepared for a variety of situations and customer types, but they all go basically like this. Just based on the little I already know about your business, Mr. Prospect, I don't anticipate any problem getting this done for you very quickly, and probably will get it done with no additional information for a level 3 approval. Or perhaps, Mr. Prospect, you probably don't want to go through submitting complete financial statements, and I don't think I'll need them for a level 3 approval. Or sometimes I may be talking to someone other than the owner, and you don't want to go to the owner to ask for a guarantee. We probably don't need to go to the owner for his guarantee. We'll just ask for a level 3 approval. Now, you can call it whatever you want, but here's the interesting thing. I've been doing this for a lot of years, And I can tell you that virtually everyone will ask what level 3 means. Here's your chance to trade better pricing for better information. How you describe the levels when they do ask is important because the associations are what makes people want to change levels. For example, level 3 approvals, Mr. Prospect, are used when we have limited information or when the owners don't care to divulge certain information, or perhaps for new businesses or for businesses that are rebuilding after some prior credit problems. Now, no successful business wants to be treated as a startup or grouped with businesses with credit problems. So again, virtually everyone will ask what a level 2 or a level 1 approval needs. Now you've got them thinking with you, not against you. You haven't judged them or required anything. What you have done, in fact, is, in a very positive light, given them a good, true look at how the world of business credit really works. If you publish payments or do quotes on the web, you can use this very effectively. For example, a web calculator might include an intro that asks what information will be provided and lists the kind of things you'd like: bank history, ownership, personal guarantees, whatever. Just make it work so that the calculator checks to see if those items have been checked. Based on those answers, have it say something like use column 1 or use numbers in blue. Then have your calculator display a range of payments with anything less than complete application information showing the same rate you'd quote to a startup business. There is neither magic nor subterfuge at work here. And please don't call or write to tell me why it won't work, because I don't want to have to give back all the money I've made by handling it like this for so many years. It's just good selling. It's anticipating potential objections and dealing with them in advance by presenting them in a positive light. Now, I said it's not magic, but there is a kind of a secret key. You have to have a solid, well-prepared, and well-practiced array of scripts to use so that you can explain this quickly, easily, and naturally. The more practiced you are with it, the more likely you are to use it, and the more naturally it will come across to your prospect. When it comes across naturally to your prospect, that reinforces to him that it applies to everyone, and he no longer feels singled out by being asked for normally required credit information. This third tool I call my quick summary, and I use this for transactions where I'll need a complete financial statement package. This qualifier helps me predict my chances of approval and helps me determine what pricing I can use, but its real purpose and its real benefit is helping the prospect be realistic about both of those things. As I said earlier, I'm all about low pressure selling and about moving as much pressure as possible off of me and onto the customer. It also helps me be sure I'll get complete financial statements, because using the tool as designed pretty much requires the customer to have complete statements in front of them. This is something you have to have prepared in advance. I always keep a hard copy with me when I'm on personal calls, and then also have copies ready for immediate faxing or emailing as needed. That's because this tool needs to be in front of the customer, and the customer needs to fill it out. You can help, of course, though. What I did is get with my primary underwriters and get a consensus of the key information they needed summarized from the complete financial statements. I then created a form that provides for both pulling that information together and for summarizing it along with the target ratios for those summary figures. What I want to avoid is having somebody send me partial statements or statements with losses or other problematic information without me knowing it in advance. So here's how I use it. Mr. Prospect, I wouldn't begin to pretend to know your business and certainly couldn't explain the financial side of it to my underwriters as well as you've explained it to me. But yet, that's exactly what I'm going to need to do. So what I want to do for you is take a moment right now and let you help me pull together the key information to make sure I present it properly on your behalf. By now, I've put the form in front of him in some way and simply go through it with him while we both are looking at the financial statements. Now, the first 3 blanks are for the net income for the last 3 fiscal years and a 4th for an interim period. So he and I are going to face the profitability issues immediately. If there's been consistent profitability, I'll be very complimentary and just keep moving along. If there are losses, he'll begin to explain them right away, and I won't have had to go back to him asking about them. I'll simply say, well, generally my underwriters are looking for consistent profitability, but sometimes there are other conditions that will mitigate that, so let's continue. The next thing my tool covers is current assets and current liabilities. And I'll say, Mr. Prospect, what they're looking for here. And note that I say what they're looking for. It's not me judging him. And here I use a ratio I know to be acceptable to most of my underwriters. If the figures he provides don't meet that, I'll say, that's just a part of the picture, of course. Let's finish with the overall view before we start looking at what might be needed to offset that. Basically, I go on in that vein, covering cash flow, tangible net worth, the lease request as a percentage of tangible net worth, the total debt as a percentage of the tangible net worth, among other things. And at each one, I tell what the ideal or target ratio is so that he's prepared for whatever we may face when we submit it. If you're not used to doing this, let me tell you, this isn't anywhere near as difficult as you might be thinking. Not if you'll invest the time to develop a solid tool to use and then use it. Full financial package leases can be very lucrative and extremely interesting to work on, but they can also be very time-consuming because of the additional information required. What using this tool will do for you is three things. First, it will let you know right away if your prospect is as committed to the process as you are. If he's not, how soon do you want to know that? Second, putting this information together in one place where you both can look at it plainly will make your prospect very realistic about credit and pricing. In a professional, supportive, and non-judgmental way, you've helped your prospect face the reality that they may not be the highest rated credit. That's okay. There's lots of avenues for getting the transaction done. But would you rather have him tell you the situation in advance, or would you rather have to go back and be the one to tell him? Third, by the time you've used this tool to pull a summary together, you'll know exactly what financial information is available to work with. And your summary of it will be a huge and highly appreciated head start on a professional write-up to send to your underwriter when you do submit the package. I can absolutely promise you that it will take far less time to go through using this tool with your prospect than it will for you to go back and forth between your underwriter and your prospect, getting everything this tool would have answered, but getting it one piece at a time instead. And if your customer won't cooperate, or if the financial information is too bad to do anything with, and if you're going to need to decline the application, I'll further promise you that you'll have spent far less time finding that out by using this tool than you would have spent finding it out one piece at a time. This is a tool that takes a little effort to create and absolutely has to be done in concert with the underwriters you use. Get with your underwriters to help you identify the best information to summarize and assign target amounts and ratios to use in it. Well, is it worth your time to develop these kinds of tools and practices, and should you be using them? Only you can answer that, but many of you know what my test would be for it. Would you rather do this or compete against a broker who does? If I was your competition and I followed you around for the next 120 days or so and talked to every single prospect you talked to, if I consistently handled things this way and you didn't, would I help or hurt your business? Remember, getting good credit and financial information from the start isn't just about the credit process. It's about getting the most out of the selling time inventory you've got available. Remember, too, that real professionals use professional tools, whether those are physical instruments, paper forms, or simply well-prepared scripts. Doing so helps them remain focused on the prospect instead of on the product, and ensures their work is done professionally and productively. If you could free up the time you spend now going back to prospects to get better, more detailed information, what would you do with that time? Well, it's your time. Make the most of it. Thank you for watching. I'm Gerry Egan, and this has been a presentation of NAELB's Distance Learning Program.